I mean,
no, it's not happening. No,
some
it's not
people
happening
would say
everywhere.
ethnicity, I mean, as a problem. Even the church, the Catholic Church, which you belong to, only recently faced a crisis.
No, look.
In our diocese.
No, well, okay.
Isn't that ethnicity?
No. Let me see. By itself, ethnicity, I tell people ethnicity is like a knife. At what point do you use a knife for slicing yams or tomatoes? And at what point does a knife become an object that can kill somebody? You call it the instrumentalization of whether it's ethnicity. Ethnicity by itself, there's nothing wrong with it. It's in our DNA. It's the way God created us. The critical factor, and what is more painful, is when it becomes an instrument for destruction. Because guess what? There's nothing to suggest. I mean, if being in power were really what mattered, nobody has been in power longer than, use the word Muslim, use the word Northerner. The Northern Muslims have been in power more than any other group in this country. But how does it happen that apart from Kaduna, for example, whose average is about, let's say, 50–52%, poverty levels in northern Nigeria are floating between 80 and 90%. How does that happen? So monopoly of power, if you monopolize power on behalf of Yorubas, what does it mean? Does it mean the Yorubas are now going to get all the jobs? If you monopolize power on behalf of your ethnic group and you become Minister of Aviation, does it mean the people from your village will enter the aeroplane for free? The question is, it is because we are bereft of ideas. This is why ethnicity has become so important. If you look at American politics, for example, 20 or more years ago, and with the end of Clinton's regime, people were talking about Irish Americans, Polish Americans, Greek Americans, African Americans. Obama changed a lot of that narrative because people are now talking about Americans, no more hyphenated Americans. So this ethnicity we are talking about, the average children of the Nigerian elite don't even speak the language anyway. If you ask many children who are in America, all over Europe, where they just tell you in Lagos, daddy say we are from Dudokofia or whatever the place may be. They are speaking in reported tense. So I'm saying that sooner than later, and with a young generation of Nigerians having the capacity and the competence to articulate and dream dreams, increasingly younger people are showing that my father doesn't have to be anything. Young Davido is richer than his father, okay, and a lot of other people. So really what I'm saying is that it will be in our interest, and sooner than later, with the collapse of the stranglehold of those who control the levers of power by using ethnicity and religion, sooner than later, circumstances will force them to negotiate differently.
You're hopeful?
I am hopeful.
Well, men of God wield a lot of power.
Absolutely. Well,
especially, or many people, the people who worship in their churches and their,
look,
identify with their faith.
People worry.
The question I want to ask is,
Right.
when discussing national issues, how do you think you're supposed to balance, the message of the gospel and, without sounding overtly political? Or do you think they should be political?
Who?
Men of God. Pastors.
I don't like the word men of God. All of us are children of God, and there's no, I'm not on a higher pedestal than you. Maybe I occupy an office as a bishop, but that is an office. I'm a priest, but it doesn't make me holier than the person on the pew. I think what is most critical, and we often fall back on religion as an excuse. We've so privileged non-state institutions, and this is what is driving the problems that we have in Nigeria.
Do they have a role in politics?
Everybody has it. I wouldn't even like to say, okay, if you go to England, if you go to America, go to Europe, ask the same question. What role does the church have in British politics? What role does the church have in American politics? It does have a role. But if you notice, the faiths become very important when the Republicans are debating things like abortion and so on and so forth. The point with us in Nigeria is that because we have diminished the concept of citizenship. So the tragedy is that Nigerians are now either holding on to their churches or their mosques, or holding on to their ethnicities and so on and so forth. And it is in the interest of ordinary Nigerians to understand that, first of all, I'm a citizen of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. I just happen to be a priest. I wasn't born a priest. And the Constitution of Nigeria has made it very clear to me I'm free to say I no longer want to be a Christian. I'm free to say, so these are the issues. And I always want to make the point, nationalism or my country will have to come before any other thing, because it is not possible for me to function as a Christian or a Muslim if I don't have a country. And I used to say to my Muslim friends, we have to fix this country, because when you go to Saudi Arabia, they don't treat you like every Muslim. They treat Nigerians differently. When you go to Jerusalem, they know you are from Nigeria, so the treatment you get is different, despite being a Christian. So if we don't clean up our act, and this is where for me it's more painful, that we've never had a government in this country that managed to develop a vision of what a society that has such a plurality of identities, how those identities can come together and be forged for the common good. We've never had that conversation. This is the reason why when we say ethnicity, it's not because of anything. It's because the leadership has never had the imagination to offer us something superior to, to ethnicity.
But if you also look, I mean, I want to focus a bit on what happened in Ahira. If you focus on what happened there, would you also say that the church too is failing in its role of forging that vision which you talk about?
Well, I think, frankly, as far as I'm concerned, you must treat the case of Ahira in isolation, because it's not a case that has a precedent. All right? And happily, the Holy Father has taken a decision. The people of Ahira are happy. The Catholic Church in Nigeria is happy. We can only look for the way forward. But these things happen. And, no society is without problems. Whether you live alone or you have a husband or you have a wife, your happiness is about managing difficulties. And this is why, when you talk about governance in Nigeria, the inability, the lack of capacity of those who govern Nigeria to come to terms with the fact that they were chosen is not necessarily to solve problems, but also to figure out how to manage diversity. And it's something we've never been able to do successfully in Nigeria. And my argument is that, look, America is the best place to look, but that managing diversity is an art, is a skill. Because otherwise, if you don't have a place if you simply say you want to focus on those who are brilliant, and you don't appreciate the fact that there are people who have different talents and different gifts. Right now, many organizations, you look at CNN, you look at all this, including channels, everybody, you have to come to terms with the fact that what kind of faces do you have on television? All right? BBC has to come to terms with the fact that not everybody is white. They have to come to terms with the fact that not everybody is male. So when you manage diversity effectively, you bring more people into the room.
We take a moment now. When we return, what did the Kukah Center, the non-governmental organization established by Bishop Kukah, uncover on the farmers-herdsmen clashes, especially in Kaduna?